already recorded this. If you want to catch that recording, subscribe to the podcast. But taking too long to upload, and I'm trying this on a 5G connection. But some breaking news coming out of today. The New England Patriots have reportedly offered a major contract to Jacksonville Jaguars receiver Calvin Ridley. And let's just say the truth. Calvin Ridley does not want to play for the Patriots. And this is a real hilarious scenario happening right now because the Patriots have so much cap space to work with. And Jacksonville thought they were losing Ridley. They brought in Gabe Davis. But Calvin really does not want to play in Foxborough. It's cold. It's a 4-win team. They're rebuilding. Nobody knows a damn thing about Gerard Mayo. But hey, the Patriots are going to throw as much money as they can at him to leave him with no choice but to go to the Patriots. And it's a hilarious situation. We saw Adam Schefter report early today. New England is pushing to sign free agent wide receiver Calvin Ridley, but sources believe that he currently prefers to return to Jacksonville and has been discussing a deal with the Jaguars. Now, what makes this a really interesting situation is the Jaguars basically have to wait until Wednesday afternoon. And if they sign Ridley after that, because of the way the trade worked when the Atlanta Falcons traded him to the Jaguars, they only have to give up a third-round pick if they wait till Wednesday afternoon. Whereas if he is not an official free agent, then they have to give up a second-round pick. So he's basically playing the waiting game. So is Jacksonville. And they're going to try to wrap this deal up tomorrow. Meanwhile, the Patriots are getting in there and they're just throwing as much money at him as possible, knowing, hey, he doesn't want to play here, but we're going to try to give him an offer he can't refuse. And look, as a Patriots fan, this sucks. Being in this situation, right? Like, we're not an attractive destination. New England's cold. Our team is not very good. We're rebuilding. Again, nobody knows anything about Gerard Mayo. Also, Massachusetts has a high state income tax compared to Florida, but I'm guessing the Patriots will plan to offset that. So that is the situation right now. And also a report came out early this morning saying, in addition to the Jaguars and the Patriots, there is a dark horse team lurking on the market. Now, that is total crap because that was obviously floated out by Calvin Ridley's agent in order to get a little bit of leverage, see if one of the other 32 teams is willing to fork up some money, but they really can't, right? Because every other team is in this situation, right? Like, they don't have a lot of salary cap space, or they say, look, we can probably afford Calvin Ridley, but there's also a lot of really good wide receivers coming into this draft, and we'd much rather pay next to nothing for those guys instead of forking over 15 to 20 million for Calvin Ridley. Now, let me just say, I am not the biggest Calvin Ridley guy. This is not a move I have been pushing for. He would be a number 1 wide receiver in New England. For a good team, he's a number 2 or even number 3 wide receiver. But knowing the position the Patriots are in, really trying to rebuild that receiving core, trying to jumpstart it as quickly as possible, they're going after Ridley, and they're willing to throw far more money than anybody else to bring him to Foxborough, even if that's not really what he wants to do. So that's the situation we're in right now with Ridley. Look, I don't want the Patriots spending $20 million on Calvin Ridley. I'll tell you my opinion on what they should do in just a moment, but because of this situation where you have all these teams who would rather try to get a steal wide receiver in the first, second, or third round in this year's draft, of which there are many, instead of paying a guy like Ridley, he does not have the offers that you would expect the top wide receiver on the market to get. And he is the top wide receiver, right? Mike Evans going back to Tampa for $26 million a year, which is a crazy amount of money. Ridley probably thought he was going to get a lot of money because of the Evans deal. But Michael Pittman's off the market, going back to the Colts. T. Higgins probably going to be traded, but franchise tagged by the Bengals. They're kind of in control of that right now. Either way, he's not a guy you can sign as a free agent. So that just leaves Calvin Ridley as the best receiver. And the Patriots are sitting there going, we have no weapons. We don't care if Ridley is the 30th best wide receiver in the NFL. We're going to throw a lot of money at him because he is going to move the needle. And that's true. So the Patriots actually have a chance here to get Calvin Ridley at value. If the Jacksonville Jaguars can't approach, $15 million a year, which I don't think they can, and the Patriots are sitting there going, well, we can pay you 15, and hell, we'll pay you 16, we'll pay you 17 to come here, and that might be enough to draw him to the Patriots. But also, it does seem a little bit like Ridley's playing the Pats, right? He's using this situation to build up leverage, to get Jacksonville to up the ante a little bit, to maybe get one of the other 30 NFL teams to up the ante a little bit so he can get a big contract out of it. But nobody's going to offer what the Patriots are offering right now. So it's going to be a fascinating situation to see how this plays out. Now, what happens if the Patriots can't get Calvin Ridley? That's where it gets really interesting. They have some options on the trade market at wide receiver. There is T. Higgins, who I just mentioned, was franchise tagged by the Bengals, is asking for a trade right now because he wants a long-term lucrative contract, probably going to go for a lot more than a guy like Calvin Ridley. I certainly would prefer T. Higgins because Calvin Ridley is not a big-bodied receiver. T. Higgins is a big-bodied receiver, and he's going to bring that element to the Patriots offense that they thought they were getting with Devontae Parker, but we all secretly knew, hey, this guy can't separate and is not going to do a damn thing. So the Patriots could go after T. Higgins. Another guy who I really like is Brandon Ayuk. Brandon Ayuk, also undersized, probably an inch shorter than Calvin Ridley, but plays a lot bigger. Kind of been the number one receiver for the Niners. I don't know how you slice it because they got Debo. They got Kittle, who's a tight end. So they got a lot of weapons, but he pretty much was their number one guy. He was on my fantasy team this year, gave me a lot of points. Brandon Ayuk, I would probably want more than T. Higgins, even if he is undersized and is more of a Ridley type than that. But another guy who's being floated out there is Keenan Allen. And Keenan Allen's obviously big, getting up there in age a little bit, but you could bring him into New England. He's been kind of rumored to be a guy the Patriots have been interested in the last few years. Maybe Jim Harbaugh wants to start to rebuild. He wants a little bit more cap space to work with. Unloading T. Higgins' contract would do that and give him a little more room to work with. And I think Chargers fans, as much as they like Keenan Allen, they may trust him because a lot of people trust Jim Harbaugh right now. And they think, all right, if he's willing to do it, then he probably has the best of intentions. And then the Patriots are off cooking with gas because now they have Keenan Allen. They're pairing him with Demario Douglas, who looks like he's put on some weight. The real slot receiver of the future. They now have Kendrick Bourne, and Hunter Henry's coming back, and they have some room maybe to bring in a Noah Fant or another good tight end, or bring in a Xavier Legette in the draft. There's a lot of different things the Patriots can do, but they really do need that number one guy, a guy we really have not had since Randy Moss was on the team. So again, very interesting seeing how this is going to play out. I think the Patriots are going to keep throwing money at him. I would not bet money on Calvin Ridley going to the Patriots. He wants to play in Jacksonville, does not want to play in the cold weather. This is not something he wants, but the price may be too good, right? He may just say, screw it. I'll go play for the Patriots. I don't know who their quarterback is. Who the hell is Gerard Mayo? I have no idea, but why not? They're paying me $5 million a year and a year or two more than the Jacksonville Jaguars are. So I'm going to do it. But here's the thing. If the Patriots can't get Calvin Ridley, they can't pull off a blockbuster move for one of these big name receivers, T. Higgins, Keenan Allen, Brandon Ayuk, somebody else, Justin Jefferson, I don't know. And I'm going to float this out there because I've done it a million times this month. Please, I implore you, highly consider drafting Marvin Harrison Jr. I don't think I'm crazy to say that Marvin Harrison Jr. on week 1 would be a better receiver than Calvin Ridley, than Brandon Ayuk, hell, than T. Higgins or Keenan Allen. I really think he is that guy that you're going to have a franchise piece, that number one receiver that you don't have to worry about getting anymore. You don't have to be throwing crazy money at. And then you deal with the quarterback situation later. And here's the real benefit of it, right? You have him locked in for 4 years at a rookie contract salary. And then you have a lot more room to work with. And then you can go chase after a Tyron Smith, a Jonah Williams. You can reinforce that offensive line. Maybe you can get Noah Fant. Maybe you can get another receiver. And then suddenly you have a receiving core that not only looks pretty good heading into the season, they look good for years to come. You got Demario Douglas for 3 more years. You would have Marvin Harrison Jr. for 4 years. You would have Hunter Henry now for 3 years. Kendrick Bourne for 3 years. All these guys, I mean, Henry and Bourne, a little bit up there now, but all these guys are fairly young, locked in, maybe improving, and you got something to work with, especially if you can draft a Roman Wilson or a Xavier Legette later in the rounds of the draft. then suddenly you become attractive. Look, let's be honest. The Patriots are not winning the Super Bowl this year. It's not going to happen. Jacoby Brissett is probably going to be a bridge starting quarterback at least the first few weeks of the season, more likely the entire season, while the next guy they draft sits on the bench. If the Patriots are not high on drafting Drake May, whose draft stock just seems to be plummeting, if they're not high on drafting J.J. McCarthy, who seems to be moving up, but probably not the third overall pick, why not go after a Bo Nix or a Michael Penix Jr. or Spencer Rattler, who I'm starting to like a little bit, and let them sit on the bench, let them observe, let them learn Alex Van Pelt's offense, and then have them take over in year 2 after learning from Jacoby Brissett, who I guess is a really good mentor, great locker room guy. And that quarterback, including Brissett, is going to be in a great situation because they're now throwing to Marvin Harrison Jr., who is probably the best receiver to come out of the draft in a couple of generations. And I'm not saying that. Everybody else is saying that, but just go watch the tape. Marvin Harrison Jr. is that guy. Or, maybe you consider trading back and double dipping a little bit in the first round. Maybe you can still get Roma Dunze and one of the top tackles, and then you still have that second round pick to bring in a Bo Nix or a Penix or a Rattler or one of those guys. Or maybe J.J. McCarthy, this smoke is not real, and he drops to the second round, and you can draft him as well. Maybe Drake May plummets so much that he's available then. I don't know. Or you can trade back up and get him. Like, so many different things you can do where you're not hamstrung by drafting Marvin Harrison Jr. instead of throwing money at the 30th best wide receiver in the NFL. And I really think if the Patriots don't get Calvin Ridley, this is the best case scenario because you're going to have a quarterback who's not going to be able to do a damn thing probably week 1. I do think Drake May is more pro-ready than a lot of people say he is, but there is issues with footwork. There is issues with decision-making. He's not as fast as I thought he is, even though he can scramble. He can play kind of that bulldozer Josh Allen role. He can hurdle people. He's very athletic. This guy isn't Mitch Trubisky. That's total crap. But if they don't want him, a lot of Patriots scouts, they don't want the guy, then I say you get Marvin Harrison Jr. Don't worry about the receiving core anymore. And then suddenly you're in a situation where the Patriots become an attractive destination. And Gerard Mayo, look, nobody knows who the guy is now, but he builds up a reputation. The Patriots are a 500 team or better. Suddenly free agents are going to want to come there. And that's the thing. You're not going to attract guys right now. The reason Calvin Ridley doesn't want to come to the Patriots is he doesn't know what the hell the Patriots are. He doesn't know anything about this head coach. He doesn't know a damn thing. But you have some weapons there. You make the Patriots fun again. Well, then suddenly you're going to have maybe a free agent quarterback next year, or you're going to have some of the high-end free agents look to New England as an attractive destination. And I really hope Elliott Wolf explores that idea. They interviewed Marvin Harrison Jr. I guess it went well. He's very disciplined, high character guy, very large human being, very fast, can separate, can read defenses and make catches in zones and readjust. I really hope they do it. That's still the guy I'm pulling for, but I wouldn't bet on it. I think they're drafting Drake May. In other news today, the New England Patriots have agreed to terms with linebacker Josh Uche, who is returning on a 1-year deal and not being paid a lot of money, and that's kind of surprising. I always thought Uche was going to be the odd man out heading into this offseason because, look, he hasn't been an every down linebacker. They really just bring him in on third down. I think for a lot of teams he would be, and I guess he had better offers on the table, but he wanted to come back to New England. He wanted to play under Gerard Mayo, who it looks like basically told him, look, we're going to give you an expanded role. You're going to be on a 1-year deal. See what you can do, and then you can cash in next offseason, whether you want to come back to the Patriots or go to another team in the league. The offers are on the table. Teams like you. We know they think you're athletic. Well, take the risk, bet on yourself, and that's what Josh Uche is doing. And good for him. I'm glad to see it. And this is what I mean by Gerard Mayo could be a real appeal once people know who he is. Josh Uche is coming back to the Patriots because he likes Gerard Mayo, because he wants to play for Gerard Mayo. Internally, people love the guy. That's probably a big reason Kendrick Bourne decided to come back, why Hunter Henry came back, why Michael Onwenu came back. Yes, I know the Patriots had to overpay for all 3 of those guys. Maybe not Onwenu. Actually, it seems like they got a pretty good deal out of that. But right now, the Patriots have to overpay for all these free agents because nobody knows who the hell Gerard Mayo is. And internally, he has a great reputation and all these guys want to return. All they have to do is be a mildly competent team this season, have Jerod Mayo build up the reputation. Hey, he's a great players coach, has a lot of Bill Belichick in him, but doesn't piss you off 25 times a day. And I think you would enjoy playing for him. And suddenly they're going to be able to attract star free agents again. And Josh Uche is a good example of that because internally, Jerod Mayo is viewed that way. It's just externally, nobody knows who the hell he is. But good to see Josh Uche coming back and good to see Elliott Wolf at least prioritizing the players that worked in free agency. Let's just see if he can make a big splash. Again, I'm not super high on Calvin Ridley, but you get him at value, which they might because no other team wants to spend money on a wide receiver, and Jacksonville is pinching pennies right now, then it's worth it, right? But I'm still in the Marvin Harrison Jr. camp, especially if they aren't able to bring in Calvin Ridley or Brandon Ayuk or T. Higgins or any of these guys, Keenan Allen. So that's it for this episode of Pat's Cast. Yeah, I'm doing this live. Don't usually do this live, but again, my internet is spotty. Thank you for joining me. To the few people that have been listening or watching, be sure to like this channel, subscribe, share it with your friends. We'll be back the rest of the week as more news breaks. It's late. The official start of free agency begins tomorrow, and I would expect this Calvin Ridley situation to get sorted out in the meantime. So we'll see what happens there. Again, I'm Brad Whitaker. Thank you for watching Pat's Cast, and we'll be back as more Patriots news breaks. And let's draft Marvin Harrison Jr. I'm just going to float that out there again. See you later.